It's official, class is in session. Welcome to Disney Cruise Line 101, where I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Disney Cruise Line to help you plan your cruise or to help you know more than your friends and family. Whatever it is you're looking for, that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is going to be a series. So, Disney Cruise Line 101, we're going to go real deep, real fast. We're going to talk about the ships, we're going to talk about how to prepare and pack. We're going to have another episode all around budgeting. We'll talk about itineraries. We're going to talk about the booking process. We're going to talk about the tech and the app. We're going all in. So, this is episode 1. So, this is the part where you probably need to subscribe if you want to see all of it. Okay, let's get right into it. So, we're going to start with some history because this is the introduction. Let's get into the history. So, Disney has not always been a cruise line. You probably know about Disney World, Disneyland, the theme parks, but Walt really did enjoy sailing. And so at some point, Disney decided, hey, let's check out this cruise thing, but they didn't want to go all in. So you may hear people have mentioned the Big Red Boat. And the Big Red Boat was something that Disney partnered with another company, and they had these sailings on this big red boat, and it was temporary. It did not last super long, but that was kind of their trial period to see if cruising was something they wanted to get into, which they did. So in 1998, we got our first ship, and that was the Disney Magic. And now when we talk about our ships, there are different classes of ship, and you may be wondering, what's a class of a ship? So a class of ships is kind of like the category of the ship. So if we have the first set of ships that are kind of sister classes or sister ships, so we have the Magic and the Wonder, and they go together. They were built around the same time, they had the same layout, and most of the same amenities on board. That makes them sister ships. Now, the class of the ship, so that category of ship, is called the Magic class because that was the first ship of that category. So then we have the Magic class, and then we have the Dream class, which is the Dream and the Fantasy. So those are sister ships, and they're part of what we would call the classic ships, right? And then now these newer ships, right now we have the Wish class of ship, and that includes the Wish, the Treasure, the Destiny, and a fourth ship that is coming that we don't yet know the name of, unless you're watching in the future and you probably know the name. So insert name here if you know it. Next, we have the Adventure. What? The Adventure is its own class of ships. It is technically called the Global class of ships, or I guess we could call it the Adventure class of ships, but it is not going to have any sister ships with it because this ship was actually purchased from a company that went bankrupt. And during the pandemic, everything was crazy. Nobody was sailing. And this company that had built the Adventure, it was called something else at the time, they could not afford it. So Disney bought this ship for $40 million. And this was a $1.8 billion ship. So Disney bought this at a 97% discount and decided to refurbish. And so the ship was mostly built from a structural perspective, but then Disney was able to go in and redo all of it. And so there's a difference in the way the funnels are set up on the outside, but then on the inside, there is no casino. And then Disney did a whole lot of work on the inside of this ship. So then we have the ship coming for Tokyo. So Tokyo is Tokyo Sea. That company that owns that theme park with Disney is going to be building a ship as well. So that's going to serve the Tokyo brand and that whole area of, so, we have the Adventure going to be based out of Singapore, and then the Tokyo Sea ship will be based out of Japan. And so those two ships are over there. And then we have more ships coming that will be a smaller set. We don't know the name of the class of ships. We don't know much about them yet. So there's your history lesson of what is all the things. Okay, but let's go deeper into the specifics of these ships because back, years ago before these new Wish class ships came about, the ships were very specific in the sense that you had the Magic that would always go to Europe. You'd have the Wonder that would always go to Alaska. You had the Dream and the Fantasy alternating. The Dream did 3 and 4 nights to like the Bahamas. The Fantasy did the Eastern and Western Caribbean. And that was kind of like their rotation. They all kind of like had their thing going. And now with these newer ships, like it's all over the place. So I want to take some time to kind of share with you about these different ships and kind of give you an idea of like what these differences are and if it really matters. Because some of the differences are aesthetic and some of them are more important, like ship size and how many passengers are on the ship, which could be important to you if you're an introvert, or if you like smaller spaces, or if, depending on the destination you want to go to, some of the larger ships don't go there. So we're going to get all into it. So let's dive right into the classic ships, and we're going to go to like the original ones, not the big red boat, but let's talk about the Magic and the Wonder. So the Magic and the Wonder are sister ships. They hold about 2,500 passengers, so they're small. Like the length of the ship is less than 1,000 feet. So it is a smaller ship. It is intimate. It is quaint. It feels very homey on board, and the theming inside the ship is less IP and feels very old school nautical. So you're going to see a lot of like rich wood tones. You're going to see some blues and some reds and that classic ship vibe. Some of the differences between the Magic and the Wonder: they both have your animator's palette. So on the dining side, they have animator's palette. One of them has Lumieres and the other has Tritons, but they are very similar in feel and their menus are the same. But then each one of them has their own distinct restaurant that was part of a refurbishment when they went into dry dock a few years ago. So the Wonder got a Tiana's Place restaurant, which serves like just incredible food, but that is all themed like New Orleans. So you're going to get your beignets, like that sort of type of thing. And then on the Magic, you have Rapunzel's, and Rapunzel's also is its own thing. They have a show in both. The shows are different. These are part of the dining experiences. And then on the Magic, so you have the Rapunzel's table, that is the show in the restaurant, and they have live music like in both. But then you also have Tangled the musical on that ship, along with Twice Charmed. So those are the shows on the Magic. On the Wonder, you're going to have the Golden Mickeys along with Frozen. Those are the shows on the Wonder. And the Wonder has typically been known to go to Alaska, so it typically also has Freezing the Night Away, which is a Frozen deck party show. Now, the Magic will be going to Alaska next year, so we can expect that Freezing the Night Away will be coming to the Magic. So years ago, like rewind a few years back, because the Wonder was only going to Alaska, other ships weren't going to Alaska, we could say that Freezing the Night Away was a show that was destined and specific to the Wonder. But with other ships now the Magic's going to Alaska, it will also be on the Magic. Now, this was also a show that happens in Northern Europe, so we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, so the other big differences between the Magic and the Wonder is the Magic has the Aqua Dunk, and the Wonder doesn't really have like a specific fancy slide. So we have 3 classes of slides per se on the ships. We have the Aqua Dunk, Aqua Duck, and the Aqua Mouse. So the Aqua Mouse is on the Wish class ships, the Aqua Duck is on the Dream class ships, and then the Aqua Dunk is on the Magic. Now, the reason why the Wonder didn't have, maybe this isn't true, but this is just kind of like a thought that has been rumored, is that because it was going to be going to Alaska, and going through the Panama Canal, that they didn't feel like it was necessary to have a special slide. Is that true? I don't know. Probably just rumors, probably totally wrong. I don't know why they don't have a slide. Okay, moving on to the Dream class ships. So the Dream class includes the Dream and the Fantasy, and these are also part of the classic side of Disney ships. So that means we're getting the rich wood tones. It's very nautical theme. You step on board and you feel like you are part of sailing. You feel like let me get a skipper's hat. This is it. It feels kind of fancy, but it feels very nautical. So the Dream and the Fantasy are much bigger than the Magic and the Wonder, and they hold about 3,500 passengers. And that is quite a bit more. That's 1,000 more people on these ships. And you definitely feel that. Now, the dream and the fantasy are also, while they are laid out very similarly to the magic and the wonder, because they are bigger and they have more people, there are more spaces and more things to explore and enjoy. So, some of those things include Midship Detective Agency, which is a highlight that should be on every Disney cruise ship. Disney, if you're listening, would love to see Midship Detective everywhere. This is a little game that you can play. You basically get a card and you interact with artwork across the ship, and you kind of like run around and solve a puzzle, and it's so much fun, and the puzzles change. It's great. Okay, so that's that's just like a little fun anecdote. They also have the Aqua Duck, which is like a water coaster, water slide. It is so fun. You're in like a little inner tube, a two-person inner tube thing, and you go around the ship on the top deck, and it's just so fun. They also have bigger bar spaces, and they have, in the fantasy, one of the big differences between the fantasy and the dream is the fantasy has these beautiful bathrooms, and they're called the Barcelona bathrooms. They're kind of in the adult area, and the fantasy's theme for their adult area is Europe, and so everything is very European, and it's pretty cute and quaint. But that's kind of like the biggest difference between the dream and the fantasy. Also, the dream has like an area on deck 4 that's kind of like a cove for it. It's kind of connected to a bar space out there. But other than that, they're very, very similar. They do have different shows. On the fantasy, you have Frozen, and on the dream, you have Beauty and the Beast. And they do have the dining is similar, but sort of different. They both have the Enchanted Garden. They both have Animator's Palette, and they might have like a difference with the Lumieres or Tritons or whatever they call the French main dining, but it's all the same menu, so it really doesn't matter. Other big differences between the fantasy and the dream, well, like I mentioned earlier, in the olden days, the dream was meant for 3 and 4 night cruises, and the fantasy was the 7 night Eastern Western Caribbean. But since the shakeup with the new ships, they are kind of all over the place. So there's not really a set like, okay, well, if you want to do this itinerary, you're going to want to do the dream. Or if you want to do this itinerary, you're going to want to do the fantasy. The dream is going back to Europe. The fantasy is currently there right now. But is that going to alternate in the future? I don't know. So I can't really give you like an indication of like, you should choose one or the other. Our family really likes the fantasy, just the theming. We just love the theming of of the fantasy over the dream, but there's really not that big of a difference between the dream and the fantasy. Okay, let's move along to the Wish class. The Wish class ships include the Wish, the Treasure, the Destiny, and ship number 4, which we don't know the name yet, but you might be watching this and already know the name, so insert name here. Now, these 4 ships are bigger. They don't necessarily have more people, even though I think it feels like there's more people. Maybe they allow more children on these ships. I am not sure, but these ships are bigger in size. They have a different layout and a different style. And it's interesting because the layout is sort of counterintuitive because the hallways feel more narrow in some places than the classic ships. And that's confusing to me because this ship is actually bigger. The Wish class ships are bigger, but they also have more variety of entertainment and more segmented entertainment. And what I mean by that is there's like a whole area called the Hero Zone where they have inflatables, or they'll take the inflatables down and they've got basketball. This is inside. And then they have like air hockey and foosball and that sort of games upstairs in this area. And then they have ping pong. And all of that is kind of outside on the deck area of the Dream and the Fantasy. And on the Wish class ships, it is inside and it is kind of parallel to Palo and Remy. So it's on the same level as Palo and Remy. Or Palo and Enchante, Palo and Enchante. And on the Dream class ships, this area of recreational activities is all outside. On the Dream class ships, there is putt-putt mini golf, where on the Wish class ships, they don't have that. But on the Wish class ships, they also have more family pools, which is kind of fun, but they're on different levels. So it is, again, like it's more spread out. So if you have kids of different ages, it can be more challenging because there's a lot of height requirements on the Wish class ships. So like if you want to do the bounce house thing, you've got to be a certain height. but then, the splash pad is only for kids under, 4 and under. And then some of the pools, like just the way they're staggered, you have to be potty trained. And then, you can't see all the pools from the same viewpoint. And so the layout is very vast and spread out. And so it's just something to know. The kids club on the Wish class ships has a slide going into it. Some of the other kids clubs have, I think all of the kids clubs have slides in them in some way, shape, or form, but maybe not to get in. Okay, let me rephrase that. The Dream class ships, I don't believe, have a slide. Okay, let's move on in the Wish class ships. So the dining in the Wish class ships is different. So on your Disney Wish, you have your Frozen dining, which is like your entertainment dining. You have your Marvel, and you have your 1923. So 1923 is going to be consistent across the Wish class of ships. So all of them have 1923, and then they all have Marvel, or I think we don't know anything about this fourth ship yet, but I'm going to assume it will have 1923 and it will also have Marvel. And then the third dining is going to be this like live entertainment. So we have over here on the Wish, we have Frozen. On the Treasure, we have Coco. On the Destiny, we have the Lion King Pride Lands, and we're not sure what's going to be on number 4. So that's kind of the dining element. Now, these ships all have different feels. So the layout is the same for the Wish class ship, but the feel and the vibe and the experience on board is very different. And the experience on board is also very different than the classic ships over there. So the classic ships feel like you are getting on a cruise ship, and it feels very nautical, like you are sailing to a destination. Now, when you get onto these ships, on the Wish class ships, you are boarding on to the destination. Not that you're not, like you're still sailing places, but it feels like the ship itself is the destination. So it almost feels like a Disney World on a ship. So the Wish class ship is kind of like princess themed. So you walk in, it is very airy and beautiful and light and bright and princessy, and there's Cinderella on the staircase. Like there's so many whimsical things, and the staterooms are beautifully themed, and it's just very Cinderella is the best way to describe it. If you go to guest services, you'll get magic wands, and there's this whole theme around wishing. There's a wish goodnight at nighttime in the main atrium where the chandelier does this whole kiss goodnight, and it's just very beautiful. And that's kind of the theme of the Wish. You get onto the Treasure, and the Wish is supposed to be 3 or 4 nights out of Port Canaveral, kind of like to the Bahamas. Now, when you get onto the Treasure, it's totally different. This is like adventure meets the ocean. And so you've got dark purples and greens and golds, and it feels kind of like Middle Eastern and Arabian, and it's Latin, and then you have these 2 characters, Sage and Coriander, that are kind of leading your adventure. There's activities on board that are interactive and engaging, there's a jungle cruise, there's unique storytellings, and it's very immersive. And so on those 7 nights, it feels like you're part of something bigger. Now, on the Wish class ships, we have different bar spaces, and we'll get into that in a second. But so the theme for the Wish is the princess thing. The theme for the Treasure is adventure. And then you have the Destiny that's heroes and villains, and it's going to feel a lot from what we've heard. We haven't had, this is being recorded in, August, and the ship will start in November, December. And what we've heard is it's going to feel like the Star Cruiser experience that Disney used to have in Disney World, that was the Star Wars experience, where you were part of the adventure and you have to pick a side, and things happen. And so from what I understand about the Destiny is it's going to be a lot like that you are going to board and you're going to pick a side, or you will be assigned a side, and it is going to be a very immersive experience where you will not just have opportunities for character meet and greets and photos, but you might have opportunities to join in a mission. So very, very, very different experiences. And I expect ship number 4 to be completely different too. So we have the bright and beautiful, we have the adventure experience, we have, the good versus evil. And I don't know what we're going to get over here, but I'm very excited about it. So that's kind of like the theming. And then we have like very unique experiences on these ships. Now, in the Wish class, you have these bar spaces that are very unique and different than the not so themed bar spaces on the classic ships. So on the Wish, you have like Nightingales, that's like a touch to Cinderella. You've got Tiana's Bayou, which is, obviously a touch to Tiana and that story. And then you have the Rose, that is, connected to Beauty and the Beast. Also on the Wish, they have the Hyperspace Lounge, which is all focused on Star Wars and really immersive. And then you get to the Treasure, and like they went bananas on the Treasure. On the Treasure, they have the Periscope Pub, which is themed after 28,000 Leagues Under the Sea. They have the Skipper Society, which is themed after the Jungle Cruise. They have a Haunted Mansion Parlor, which is themed after the Haunted Mansion. They have the Scat Cat Aristocats Lounge. And then they also have the Rose, which is themed after Beauty and the Beast, which is the Enchante Palo Bar. And these are all themed after very famous attractions in Disney World, Disneyland. And yeah, I was a little surprised that they just went all in on this IP. I'm excited for it, but very different than what you're going to see on like the classic ships where the bars are more generic. They have like refreshed some of the bar spaces on those original ships, but not really to the extent that there's no Skipper Society on any of the other ships or a Periscope Pub anywhere else either. Okay, moving on to the Destiny, which no one has been on yet, unless you're watching this later, and maybe someone has. Maybe I have. I'll be going in December. But they will have a DeVille's Cocktail Lounge after Cruella DeVille, the Haunted Mansion Parlor Bar, like on the Disney Treasure. They will be having a Cask and Cannon Pirates of the Caribbean Lounge, which is going to be so cool because it's going to be on a ship going to the Caribbean. And then they will have a Doctor Strange's Sanctum bar. And then obviously the Rose, which you have on the other ships. So I don't know if this is helpful, but you can kind of see the differences where there's so much Disney IP on these newer ships, and the ship itself, like the rooms, even like the rooms of each stateroom are very much themed. Like you walk into the room and like my last room on the Wish was Moana theme, but you might have like, you're gonna have different themes in each of the staterooms. Where on the classic ships, the theme is like, hey, we're going on a Disney cruise. And so it's a very different vibe. And so because of that, this is where like, okay, let's move on to the next part. Does it matter what ship you're on? And I would say like they all have different price points, and there's no longer that set, like if you want to go here, you got to take this ship. Because that can change at any point now with the changing and the mixing up of these itineraries. So Disney destinations. So let's kind of like move forward from the ships. Those are all the ships. You might have like a grab bag. There might be some that go to the same destination, so you can actually pick and choose. And the way that I would pick and choose, like if I was going on my first cruise, if I want to go visit those destinations, like if I have never been to Europe before, I would rather not take a brand new ship that the ship is the destination to Europe, because Europe should be my destination. Same with Alaska. If the Wish was going to Alaska, it would be very frustrating because the Wish is great, but the Wish is kind of a destination ship. So because there's so much to do on board, like it would be really hard for me to get my kids off the ship to go see Alaska. And if you're going to Alaska, you should probably go see Alaska, right? So depending on what the itinerary is, can depend on what ship I would recommend checking out. So if you're just going to like, you've got a bunch of sea days in there, by all means, like take a new ship. I mean, if you can, take a new ship and go experience the destination at sea. But if you are going on a very port heavy and you care about the itinerary and like you want to be in these ports, I would not go on a brand new ship as your first experience on these new ports. Like there are some new releases today of new itineraries that have been released. And there's like a 7-night on the Destiny to like Southern Caribbean, which is amazing. But if you can, that should not be the first time you ever step foot on the Destiny, because it would suck to miss out on all those incredible stops because you're so into the ship, which like is fine. But if you're going to be spending that kind of money to go to those destinations, you it would be really hard to have to pick and choose. Do I want to be on the ship or do I want to be in Curacao, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I really hope Disney stays the course of like letting these destination ships be in places where they're not really doing a lot of great destinations. Like Galveston, they really should move one of these newer ships to Galveston where it's just like a few sea days and like maybe one port stop where you can just stay on the ship and really immerse yourself in everything there is to do on the ship, because there is so much to do on these newer ships. Okay, let's talk about destinations. So Disney has, history lesson, Disney has typically done the way that historically the destinations have been. They have usually had one ship go over to Europe in the summer. They have usually had a ship come out of Port Canaveral and go, they do a 3-night and a 4-night out of Port Canaveral, and then they do a 7-night Eastern Western out of Port Canaveral. Okay, history lesson, right? And then when that ship comes back from Europe, a lot of times you might see that ship in like New Orleans, or they sometimes were coming out of New York and going up to Canada and then coming back down and coming out of New Orleans or Galveston and kind of doing that route. And then you had the Wonder that was, going all the way to the West Coast and doing the Panama Canal and spending some time in San Diego. So now with these new ships, what's going on is they did send the Wonder all the way down to Australia and New Zealand. That will not be coming back. There is one more season of that. So if that is you, go now because it's not coming back. But you will have the ship in Singapore, but that's still a hike. That's a really long flight. So unless you want to come, to Alaska or whatever, like those are your options. So the Wonder is not coming back to, Australia, New Zealand. And then the Magic is not going back to Europe. The Magic is coming with the Wonder to Alaska. And so there will be a longer season over on the west coast of the United States for that population, which I'm very excited for them. And then on the other side of the coin, we've got a ship that will be coming. There'll be like a ship based in Galveston, and then there will be ships out of Fort Lauderdale, which is close to Miami, so basically Miami, and then Port Canaveral, and we are not getting a ship back in New York City, which is a bummer for us East Coasters. So these ships are sailing. So Disney has 2 private islands in the Bahamas. There is Disney's Castaway and Disney's Lookout Key. So Castaway Key and Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point. And the Castaway Key Island is a just totally private island that Disney, I guess, has rented from the Bahamas for like 100 years. So they basically own it. And this island is very themed to like a shipwrecked island. It feels like you're in a movie scene in regards to like, it's very authentic, but feels run down, and the bathrooms are not like fresh and beautiful. They kind of feel like you're on a deserted island. They still exist, and they're not like outhouses or anything. It's just a darker vibe. And so they have like a cookout there, and you basically can like do whatever you want on the island. It's Disney's private island. They have bikes you can rent, snorkel equipment. They have excursions on the island. It is incredible. You spend like the whole day there. It is amazing. You can go there without having to like spend any extra money. You just go and have a wonderful day, like a perfect day on the island. It is just amazing. They have water slides into the ocean. They have a splash pad. They have a kids club on the island where your kids can have lunch and play, and they have a splash pad in there too. It's great. Like, it's just an all-inclusive experience on the island. And then Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point is connected to a bigger, larger Bahamian island. And so it is not a Disney private island, but is a Disney part of like Disney's section of the island. And there it is a beautiful, beautiful beach. You do have to take a tram. They have a water park. They have also like the food, like you set up, you can like not spend any money and have a perfect day. They have their 5K. They have, the beautiful beaches. You can go snorkeling if you want. I think the bike rentals should be coming there. I don't know if they have started yet as of this video being posted. There is so much to do. There's more excursions on Lookout that are more culturally immersive, but you don't have to do an excursion to like have a perfect day. It is incredible. The water's a little bit rougher there. I would say at Castaway, it's very, very calm. It's like a bath. It's in like a cove versus Lookout. It is like exposed to the ocean, but equally as amazing. You may be thinking, why Disney? Like, what sets Disney apart from other cruise lines or other experiences that you can have, or Disney World, even? Like, why would you cruise and why would you cruise with Disney? So, why Disney? Disney's level of service and attention to detail is something that is unmatched by any other industry out there, cruise line or not. So, when you walk into a space that is Disney, you will know the level of detail from the carpet choices, the colors, the art, the lighting, the music, the smells, like everything about it has been really thought out and really, really well done. The service, again, I there have been other industries that are stepping up their game to match Disney, but there is just something about Disney that is different. So you're going to have like a wonderful experience, whether you are like into the parks or not, or into the IP or not. It is just you're going to have a high quality experience when you're on board. Let's see what else. So the parks versus cruise. Now, this is my own personal bias, but I find that the parks are a lot of planning and budgeting. Like, you have to, when you get into the parks, you have to figure out food, you have to figure out the schedule, you have to then pay for all the things, and the paying keeps happening. Versus on the cruise, you can pay once and kind of be done with paying if you want. Like, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people get extras and get drinks and all those things, but you don't have to, because all the food is all inclusive. They're like, the activities are all inclusive. There's not like a nickel and diming that you find as much at the parks. So that's kind of like my personal preference. I find cruising to be more accessible, more inclusive, and more conscious of like multiple price points. So you could come in to the cruise line with a specific price point and stay at that price point and still feel like you got an equal experience as someone who came in at a much higher price point. And so I think it's a more accessible way to travel, and you get to go see the world versus like you can see like replications of the world at Epcot, replicas of the world, versus actually getting to go pretty much, okay, not anywhere, but you can go to a lot of different destinations with Disney, which is pretty unique. So that said, I hope this was helpful. Stay tuned to part 2. I have shared part 2 about how to choose a Disney cruise, and then coming up after part 2, we're going to go deep into the itineraries and where does Disney sail, and what are the best itineraries out there. I'll share, because I've been on so many cruises, I will share all of it with you. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Please like and subscribe, and check out these other videos if you're interested in more Disney Cruise Line tips. Okay, see you next time. Bye, y'all.